Hey everyone, uh, good afternoon. Uh, if you're joining, thanks for joining. Um, just gonna let some folks get on, and I'm gonna try and get Kevin into the stream here. So just give me a second. Might just need to wait till Kevin joins on the live stream so that I can add him in. I don't know if he's joined yet. Just one second. Hope everyone's having a good Saturday. Let me just get, I think Kevin just needs to show up and then I can add him. All right, just tagged Kevin there so he should see it. And then hopefully I can add him into the stream. There we go. All right, I can see Kevin now. Ah, okay. Interesting. It says that I need, oh dear. Okay, it's something about Instagram. This has happened before. It's saying that this whole assassin needs the latest version of Instagram to join. Oh no. This is one of these weird things with Instagram sometimes. Kevin, hopefully you can hear me and you'll know why I'm having some trouble adding you. Okay, here's what's gonna happen. I'm gonna figure out how to make this easier for Kevin. I don't want to have to make him have to update his Instagram just for this. So, yeah, he'll have to update in the app. I know. Yeah, let me jump off this. And I'm gonna come back. Let me hit up Kevin in a DM and figure out how. Oh, here we go. Here we go. All right, I think Kevin's done that. I'm just waiting for him to. Yeah, here we go. Hey, man.
Yo.
Yo. Sorry
Okay.
about that.
No, you're good. I had it on my iPad, but I don't know why it wasn't working.
Yeah, I think it's some like weird thing where like you have to have like this new version of it because of Facebook and shit.
Yeah, but I don't
And
have the new
like,
one on here, which is weird.
oh yeah, that's strange. Well, you're
There you
here.
go.
Thank you, brother, for joining. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, my pleasure, man. My pleasure.
Yeah. Um, so normally how I start, I don't know how much you know about this.
Nothing. I know nothing.
Nothing. Yeah, yeah. So here's what happened. I I started this thing as a sort of way to process stuff around like I separated from my partner of like 20 years and my dad passed on from cancer. And when that happened, I started writing I was doing I'm a writer by background, but I started writing all these poems that I hadn't done since like high school.
uh,
But the other thing that had happened was, and which is why it's called Grief Teep, was, often the first thing I ask the guests is how we know each other. And you and I had never met.
yeah.
I know of you by reputation, but the connection is my coach, Nate, who also trains with you.
Mhm.
And I've been doing Muay Thai maybe for about 3 years at that point, maybe like 4 times a week. I'd spar like once a week. But I talked to Nate about what was going on in my life, and Nate was like, come and train harder.
Yeah.
He was like, I think this is going to be good for you. He was like, come and do 6 times a week, work yourself up to 8. And he was right. I mean, I always joke that like Nate telling me to do that kind of really helped me come out of a really like low place of like shame and guilt and all that stuff. So that's
Uh,
how this thing came about. And I had like I would read a poem every week. I'd drop the poem and then I read it and I'd have a guest who did some art or something else as well.
mhm.
And I'd obviously seen you had written a little bit. I've read your books and seen your art. And I asked Nate, I was like, do you think Kevin might come on and have a chat about some of this stuff? And he's like, why don't you just ask him and see what he says? But I wanted to ask you, how did you and Nate connect actually? How did that happen?
So he used to train under Roxy,
Hmm.
uh, and I think he was teaching at her gym.
Yeah.
And I think she reached out to me and wanted to get him a private with me for like his birthday or something, maybe.
Yeah.
I think that's what happened. Either way, she's the one that kind of put us in touch, and then we just started working together.
Looking good.
Uh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the gym I started at, was Roxy and Dustin's, like Roxy's gym. Yeah,
Okay.
and like learned like started because Nate, when he first came to the gym, got stuck with the 6 a.m. class,
Uh,
which is the class I used to do.
okay.
And yeah, no, and then I know now, I know that now I know Greg and you all train as well together. And Nate, I've been really blessed that Nate introduced me to Greg and I get to train with Greg as
Mhm.
well, which has been good.
Yeah.
Um, but what I wanted to do as well, like, look, I know you've done a ton of these like podcasts and stuff, and you've talked about your life and all those things, and I didn't want
Yeah.
to ask about any of that stuff. In fact, for
Okay.
everyone who knows Kevin, go watch like his pod with Rogan and all that stuff, and you can get all of that stuff. But I was really curious, like, for me, I really like Muay Thai really became like meditation for me, like meditation and movement. And I wanted to ask you like some of your thoughts and experiences around like how Muay Thai has helped like a lot with that sort of meditative work for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it definitely is. It's meditative, it's therapeutic, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, all those things. I think doing anything difficult, especially when physically difficult, really helps a lot with all those kinds of things. I always view training for me as really clears out the static of life and the noise and all the things that really are irrelevant, but we allow them to just pile on with our everyday struggles and just information and the noise and chaos, all these things that happen in life. The less I train, the more those things just start coming in on me. Like I feel them. Most of the time I don't think about it because I do train constantly, regardless
Yeah.
of whether I'm fighting or not. But anytime I take a break, if I'm not being conscious about it, it just starts to like the walls start closing in on me, and you really understand why a lot of people are the way that they are, you know. And
Yeah.
so for me, anytime I'm not feeling good or in the best place, you know, I just got to make sure, like, have you been moving? Have you been physically active? Have you been eating right? You know,
Hmm.
I think too often we skip to, you know, medications and surgeries and all these things when, you know, maybe start there first with what are you doing in your life? How's
Yeah.
your health? You know, what are you allowing in your what are you allowing in?
Hmm.
You know, what is
Hmm.
what's surrounding you, and so many of those things. Once you start to address them, it really allows you to see what the real problems are and what which ones aren't, and which ones you can kind of handle on your own. And
Hmm.
more often than not, it's a great majority of them will clear out pretty quickly once you start limiting the negative things in your life.
Yeah, it's so true. Like it's funny because I grew up in Malaysia. And so I grew up in a culture where um not to say that medication and treatment wasn't sort of respected, right? But it was never the first option.
Hmm.
Like I definitely grew up in an environment where there was like, oh, okay, you're feeling a certain way, get outside, eat, think about what you're eating,
Yeah.
really get outdoors and sort of, but like everyone else sort of forgot about that. And you're right, like I just remember, even just a couple of days ago, I I had a conversation with someone and it was a difficult conversation and I hadn't expressed myself properly.
Yeah.
And then I went and did some bag work with Nate. And whilst I was doing that, cleared perspective
Yeah.
and was able to come back and then re sort of assess the conversation and go, oh, here's how I got this wrong, and
Yeah.
here's how I didn't express this well. Um, and it's funny thinking of bag work. I know that without getting into too much of technical conversations and stuff, like I know that for you've often talked about how people forget or people kind of discount how important bag work is. Like everyone just
Yeah.
wants to go and smash a bunch of shit up and like,
Yeah.
but I've heard you time again, and I remember it was Nate who told me like, oh yeah, Kevin always talks about working on the bag, and I once I installed a bag in my apartment pre-pandemic, like again, it was just being able to just be there with that and do that work. Like I wanted to hear your thoughts on like you talk a lot about bag work and how it's
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
important.
You know, it's one of those things. It's like the more you do it, the more beneficial you realize it is, and the more important you realize it is, and the more aspects of it you understand that are there. Like it's not just a bag. Like you can use it for so many different things, you know. But you kind of just have to do it. Like the bag can be the best coach you've ever had. Just 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 do it. And, like you're gonna figure out what's right, what's wrong. You're gonna learn how to kind of maximize your output and limit your effort and make the most out of what you're doing. And it really forces you to teach, and it forces you to like just be in it, you know, without somebody having to tell you what to do. Um,
Yeah.
you know, and to be creative with it. You know, it's kind of like how going for a walk in nature can be like therapeutic. Like you're not actually doing anything, you're just being in it, and it just, you understand it by doing it, you know. And it amazes me that the lack of of bag work people do these days, when we just came up that way. It was like you're gonna do about a half hour or so on the bag every day, and without somebody sitting there holding your hand telling you what to do.
Yeah.
um, and you know, I think that's kind of lacking in this day and age, unfortunately. But yeah, I think a lot of things like that. It's like self-reflection. You know, you learn so much about yourself, about the art, about you're just forced to kind of figure it out and to think about it, and to even not even to consciously think about it, just the movement, and figuring out how it all works with repetition
Hmm.
and creativity, you know. And I think that's one of biggest things when it comes to advancement in arts, whatever that art may be, is creativity and finding ways to make things work that aren't spelled out for you. You know, I thought that I saw this really great documentary, and it was kind of showing how all the advancements in technology with sports and science and stuff has, you know, that it's done a lot of really great things, but it's hindered a lot of people, and it's like leveled everybody off. Where before, when people had less technology, you know,
Hmm.
less things like that, they were forced to be creative, and some of the best teams in the world, some of the best athletes in the world, all came from that place of having to be creative with your limitations. You
No,
know.
you're right. I'm thinking of a story I heard. I think they asked Prince at one point about what he thought about these, where people were learning how to play the guitar, but with an electronic source, right? So it was like,
Mhm.
I think the screen would show you what to press where, and
Yeah.
it was claiming that if you learned on that, you can go play the guitar. And he's like, yeah, no, he was like, it's not going to work. He was like, I'm telling you right now, the only way you're going to achieve sort of that kind of greatness is to do the hard work. And it's
Well,
going, yeah.
you have to learn the what's so great about failing things, and the only way to do
Mm,
that is just to do it. Like you don't need to. It's like people that want to get in shape before they get in shape. You
right.
just gotta go. Like you just gotta start. Just start doing it. The best way to start is to start. Just do
Yeah.
it. You'll figure it out, and you know, usually you'll figure it out much quicker by having to figure it out. You know, when you put
Yeah.
yourself in a situation where you're forced to figure it out, you know, that's why it's like diving into the deep end is the best way to learn how to swim. You're going to learn how,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
one way or another. And you know, it might be a little more painful and uncomfortable, but it's the quickest way to learn anything.
Yeah. I think about my experience with the jump rope. I mean, Nate will tell you this. So when I started at the gym, I couldn't jump rope. And I always remember it took me 3 years. And the moment I remember where I figured it out was actually back in Malaysia. It was actually my dad started chemo. And I found a gym out there that was run by this Thai fighter. And I
Mm.
went to train with him. And it was just the fact that he was just like, you gotta keep doing it. You just gotta keep doing it. And it took me 3 years, and I finally could do it. And I came back to LA, and Nate was like, "Holy shit, you can finally like jump rope without stopping it." I was like, "Yeah, I just had to keep doing it."
Yeah.
And like, yeah, it was. Um, and you're right. I think like there's a lot of peacefulness that comes with the bag work, and you're right about like how you guys would train. Like I remember again when I went to that gym in Malaysia, first half an hour, it was all bag work. And
Yeah.
when I would do private training with this guy, I remember once he's like, I think I kept going a little too hard and he just kept tiring me out. And
Yeah.
eventually I got so tired and zen, he was like, there you go. He's like,
Yeah.
I'll keep tiring out till you're this peaceful, then you'll understand what you're doing.
Mhm.
But you're so right. Yeah.
Yeah, and like
Yeah.
so many of those, you know, I think every lesson you learn in the gym is transferable to life, you know, and on all those concepts, you know, really apply to our everyday life if we, you know, and I think that's what's so great about martial arts, or again, anything difficult you have to do.
Yeah.
That just requires those things are the best teachers life lessons you're ever going to get is doing really difficult things.
Yeah. What are some of the other things you do to keep like a positive mental attitude when you're once you've stepped onto the mat to train or I'm curious what are some of your
Hmm.
what has
You
worked for
mean
you in your life. What?
you know how to keep it?
Yeah, like I just remember once like I was at the bag. I don't know what Nate saw, but clearly like all those thoughts like, I was doing some combos, some of those thoughts had gotten into my head. He saw something and I just remember him coming up to me and he said behind me, he's like, leave that shit all off the mat.
Yeah.
Once you're on here, you forget about all of that and you just focus on that. And I've now subsequently learned things that to like meditate before I go on and stuff like that. I'm just curious what some of those things have been like for you. What do you use?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've never had a that much difficulties. Like once I'm there, I think I kind of just naturally check into that place, you know. It's never been a really a process because maybe because I've been doing it so long and I just understand that you know when you're in there, the worst thing you can be doing is be somewhere else, you know.
Yeah,
And again, that great life lesson of being present and
yeah,
and being there and do what you're doing in the moment and everything else is not going to be helpful to you. And I think just learning to let go of that. Not that it's always the case, you know, but I learned very early on that how negative that can be when you're trying to do something else and you have these outside influences in your brain and in your spirit that are just weighing you down, and it usually doesn't end well. So
yeah.
yeah, it's
And and is
yeah.
it the same thing for you with motivation? Like I noticed someone was asking about like keeping that motivation going when you're losing motivation. You know,
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult because it's not always the same answer. You know, it's not always
yeah.
necessarily the same process. And I think a lot of times you think you've got it handled, and then something else will. I use this example of you know, like 7 years ago, whenever it was, I blew my knee out,
Hmm.
and you know, you would think after going through something like that. When something like a minor injury happens, it wouldn't be that big a deal. But when I broke my thumb, um, a year and a half or 2 years ago,
Hmm.
it was almost just as devastating, you know. And
Mm,
I'm like, it's just my thumb. Like, who cares, you
mm,
know? But the process of it, I think the you know, it being a different stage in my life, in my career, you know, it happened literally 3 weeks before my fight. All these
yeah.
things, you know, just because you've gone through something major doesn't mean you understand it. But when you kind of take a step back, it's still the same process. Like, all right, this is what's happened. What are we going to do from here? Are we going to let it break us, or are we going to use the time wisely, use the time that we have? And you know, that's where you kind of recognize how, if you've done it before, you know how to do it again. You know the process anyway. But
Process, right.
even if the circumstances are different, and I think that's what we tend to get caught up on, because you feel, you're like, why is this so devastating? It's not as big a deal. But with taking a step back from things and just understanding it from that perspective of, it's just everything's a process, you know, regardless of how big or small the circumstances may be. It's still a process. You still need to look at it in a certain way, like a challenge. Here's a
Yeah.
challenge. What does it matter if it's big or small? It's a challenge, you know, and the process and what you need to do to push through it, and whether you're going to let it break you down or build you up is all on you.
That is the choice. You're right. Because like I think about what was happening with me at that time, and I remember like that was something a bunch of friends, but also I remember Nate said he was like, "Look, you have a choice here, right? You could let this completely floor you, and that will take you down one path, or you could say, okay, I did these things. I'm going to learn from it. I'm going to move forward, and I'm going to leverage it to do these other, to
Yeah,
transform or to do these other things." Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. This might be a good moment to quickly read. So for everyone who's joining, in case you were wondering why is this dude suddenly going to read a short poem, it's because it's part of a poetry thing. It's a really short one, but I also know you've written one before, Kevin. I think
yeah,
you've had one piece in with the US folks.
yeah.
Um, at some point, I do need to find a way to talk to Tiffany because she writes so much
Yeah,
poetry.
she does. She writes a ton.
Yeah, yeah. But this one is called Early Mornings. It's really short. I'll explain what it was about after, and then we'll go from there. So it's called Early Mornings. Once upon a time, it was writing time. Now it's just time, actual alone time. And before, it was prepping for you time. That's it. I mean, this one's meant to be on the page more than publicly read, but
Mhm.
I I have a very I've always been a morning guy. And so I get up at 4. It used to be that I, read or write a little bit. I do some meditation. I go train at 6 with Nate. But when I moved out and separated, it was really weird because like I had to learn, like someone told me, you need to learn the difference between loneliness and being alone.
Yeah.
And they were like, you never learned how to be alone because you went from your parents' house into a relationship and you were with someone. And so this was this thing about like, I used to get up to write, or I used to get up to be ready to kind of work with you, to my partner, or to kind of spend, be in this, but now I actually had to wake up and learn just how to be alone.
Yeah.
Um, and weirdly enough, a lot of that became about training because what essentially happened was I was like, okay, I'm going to just train twice a day now. And so I get up, I had a program that Nate had worked out for me, um, did that. But I was curious about how, I don't know if this has been something you've had to deal with, but I know a lot of people might have had to. Like, how have you found, someone told me, sorry, I'm rambling, but
That's
I'll get to the point.
no.
People used to say to me, "Oh, Ari, you're very much in your head. You need to be much more in your body." And I could never understand what people meant. And
Yeah.
I think it was when I had to confront isolation and I then realized I could do meditation through movement. I wondered if you've had any incidences in your life when, in periods of isolation, physical movement has managed to keep you anchored into the world so that you don't kind of spin off into complete isolation and withdrawing from the whole world.
Yeah. Well, like, it's kind of one of those. I've been keeping myself moving and physically active for, I've been fighting now for 18 years.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to have a reference for that because I'm always doing it. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? But as I said before, I understand that it is the thing that keeps me in a healthy mental and physical place. So I recognize when I'm not doing it, those kinds of things where I'm not staying connected to who I am
Mm.
and being clear. And really that has more to do with just being keeping myself moving and alive. Not that fighting is definitely the thing I love to do and everything, but
Yeah.
really it's about just staying moving and active. At the end of last year, well, I guess 2 years ago now, I was contemplating retirement, and you
Yeah.
know, I forced myself to take a month off to really kind of step back from it because I've been in this for so long, and I've never taken a break before. I took one break. I took 1 month break back in 2009.
Hmm.
And that's the only time I've ever taken more than a week or two off in 18 years. So I really forced myself to step back, which was really difficult, particularly when you're doing this and you've progressed to any level. Really,
Mm.
I always feel like fighting and sports and things, it's like you're on this train, and if you step off, like the train's still going,
Hmm.
and the longer you stay off it, the farther in the back of the train you're going to end up. So it's a really hard thing to do to force yourself to take a break, to take a step back when you're in the midst of progressing and moving forward. But I also knew that it had to be done.
Mm.
It's one of those things too where you have to do it knowing that that might be it. You might not be
Yeah.
able to hop back on the train, or you might not even be able to want to, but how do you even know if you want to do it anyway if you're just in it so much? So
How that's yeah.
that was
Um,
a hard thing.
how much work around gratitude came into that when you were kind of, I'm curious, like thinking, like making those decisions, right?
Yeah. I think with all the injuries and things I've had over the years, I've had to kind of recognize constantly. I mean, even from day one, how grateful and blessed I am to do this, but still, no matter how much you know that when you're in it, you're never as
Mm,
grateful for it as you will be when it's taken away from you.
mm.
Um, I think that's always a good thing to do intentionally. Just take a step back and be able to see things for what they are and what you like, what you don't like, what you want. And yeah,
Mhm.
it was a really hard thing, but it was an extremely important and beneficial thing. Um, and
Yeah.
I completely lost track of what we were talking about.
Yeah. No, you're on track. You're totally there. You're totally there. I wanted to use the second part of this to talk a little bit about your art. And I mean, here's one example I have on that great cover for the record you did.
That's so funny.
Um,
Like I didn't, that wasn't even for anything. Like I was just screwing
right.
around. I think I did that in one like I was just knocking out. It was like an Inktober kind of thing where I'm just drawing a quick little 5 minute thing every
Yeah.
day. I I thought that was hilarious, and then they wanted to use that for the album cover. I was like, yeah, go with that.
But tell. I'd love to hear a bit more about your art. How that came about? Was it through your skating days, or where it came from, and how what does it do for you now?
Yeah, my art's been from birth, basically. I've always been artistic and drawing, and I really find that I'm expressing myself artistically in everything that I do.
Hmm.
Whether regardless of the medium I'm using, even fighting or actual art. I feel like I have an artistic expression in what I do. But as far as like art like that goes, yeah, I've been doing that since I was a little kid. Um, I did go to art school. I got my degree in computer animation.
Mm,
I was actually 2 years into my degree when I started training.
hmm.
And, as soon as I started training, I was like, oh, I'm not doing anything else ever again. What's the point of this? But for me, it was one of those things like I didn't graduate high school and I was always, I never had any real focus like that. So I felt like it was important for me just for myself to finish
Yeah.
because it's like this is something you you wanted to do. You didn't think you ever would do. It's important to finish, even if you had never used your degree. It was
Hmm.
important for me to do, and I did, and I'm glad I did. So, um, but yeah, with my art, it's I don't know. I have so many different ways that I express it. People are always asking me what kind of art I do or what genre I do. I don't
Uh,
know. I can't put myself in a box like that.
hmm.
I consider everything I do to be surrealism because even in my portraits and stuff, they always have like a hint of surrealism to them. But
Yeah.
I think part of me just views the world in that way, like not in this very strict guidelines. I think we have a very skewed perception of reality. We're only seeing such a small glimpse of what's really out there. Even
Hmm.
just taking the context like the light spectrum or the sound spectrum, like what
Hmm.
we can actually perceive uh, in comparison to what's actually there. It's like
It's
it's so
wild.
small. It's so small. So
Yeah.
like we have no concept of what reality even is, and I think it's kind of funny. We're all walking around pretending like we know what's going on, and we don't have any clue.
Yeah, it's like that the thing about I remember someone talking to me about the perception. I can't remember what it's called, right? But where they were saying like, okay, when you look at a TV, our brain has just decided as it processes the signal that it's a square that is
Right,
black.
right.
But they were like, we have no idea if the thing is square and black, really, because it's just the way the signal's being processed.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so there's this whole conversation then of whether any of the stuff you see is real or not. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I think I have a very kind of philosophical view of a lot of things where nothing's like black and white,
Yeah.
really. It's
Yeah.
all a matter of debate and context, and I think we try to put things into these boxes when you just can't put anything into a box. And
Yeah.
so I have a kind of a very loose. loose view of everything, you know.
Yeah, yeah. What about writing? Obviously, you've written two books before. Do you have any more writing on the horizon? Is there anything you're working on or thinking about working on?
Yeah, so I've been writing my autobiography for ever now.
Hmm.
I mean, I've really been focusing on it the last few years, and like it's. I want to say it's close to being done, but that could still mean it's still 10 years away. My goal
Yeah,
was to have it finished the end of last year, but at the same time, it was one of those things where, just like my other books, like I'm not doing these for anyone. I'm
yeah.
doing them for myself, and I want it to be good, and I want to be able to be proud of it, even if nobody else cares about it. You know, and
Hmm.
that's kind of how my perception on really everything, like my fighting and everything else, is like if I'm not proud of it, I don't care if anybody else thinks it's great. Like that feels good and everything, but if it's not to me, then what does it matter?
Yeah,
So I'm working on that. I actually, that was one of those things too. I kind of have taken a step back from it because I was just in it for so long. I needed to step back from it. Because I have pretty much all the information on the page, but
hmm,
now a matter of kind of putting it in the right tone and the right under the right lens and the right wording and that kind of thing. That's where I'm at now. So I'm
yeah,
getting ready to jump back in there now. I told myself I was going to do it this week, but I postponed it to next week. So I'm in the
yeah,
process of that. I'd like to get it done this year if possible.
yeah.
Um, that's the only thing I'm really writing right now. I wanted to get back. I used to write a lot of blogs.
I remember. Yeah.
Yeah, so I have a lot of those. I mean, I have hundreds of them actually. They're just not up, but I know like these days people can't be bothered to read. So I was thinking about starting to do more like video talking blogs of the blogs, you know, 'cause as I said, I don't think, people don't want to read anymore. So I think if I just talk them out and maybe that kind of thing, I think that's what I'll do. So I think I'm going to do one next week, um, and just do a video instead of blog.
Because you were doing some of those early pandemic, I remember, right? And in fact,
Yeah.
you even treated that as art because I remember you used to put the filter and the
Mhm.
voice on it, and
Yeah.
you'd
Yeah.
share some of
I
those
was having,
thoughts.
I was, I was having fun with that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
So we'll see.
awesome, awesome. I also obviously I'm sure everyone who's tuning in knows like you also design all your yeah, and so
Yeah.
I mean this you already know I've already said this is probably one of the most comfortable hoodies I have now.
Thank
I'm trying to see if
you.
I can get the back shown with that design there. Oh my god,
Yeah,
yeah,
that
one of
was
the
that was
most
that's probably that's my favorite clothing piece I've done so far, and yeah, I'm really glad those they're comfortable because for me too, it's like if it's comfortable,
yeah.
that's everything.
It's so funny because I think Nate had gotten his first right, and he was wearing it while he was trading me the other day, and he's like, dude. He was like, I slept in this thing. It's so comfortable. And I was like, really? And he's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. He was like, wait till it
Yeah,
turns out. And then it showed up and I put it on and I actually messaged him first. I was like, oh yeah, you were right. This thing is so comfortable.
I know. Gina bought me this ugly sweater for like Christmas. It was like for an ugly sweater thing, and
Uh-huh.
it's a gremlin sweater, and it's like the most comfortable sweater I've ever had in my life. Not to mention it's gremlins, and I actually think it's kind of awesome.
Cool.
But,
Yeah.
yeah, just the fact that it's comfortable, I don't ever want to take it off.
Well, I know normally I ask people to ask any questions. It seems like the big question here is when are you back and fight in a fight? Joining. Someone's asking about one of Bellator UFC. I believe you're signed with Bellator, correct?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm still
Yeah.
signed with Bellator. Actually, we were just in talks of trying to do something in April, but unfortunately we couldn't line it up in time.
Yeah.
I'm thinking maybe May. We'll see though. You know, with everything going on, that's been the hardest thing. You know,
Yeah.
just because promotions are having trouble even getting things going, setting things up, and then things happen, get opened up, shut down. So I've just been staying in shape and
Yeah.
staying ready.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I'm hoping to get one more in before I retire, and we'll
Right.
see what happens. But yeah, if all goes well, I'll be fighting sometime this year, maybe May.
Nice. Nice. Well, my last question for you before I let you get on with this beautiful weekend. It must be really nice down where you are as well. I'm
Yeah,
hoping it's,
it's pretty
yeah.
nice.
I just thought so last night Nate said to me, okay, because I was meant to do my first, like, those tournament bouts last year. Then obviously everything that happened. And so Nate last night told me, Ari, I think, okay, we found it, there's something happening in Iowa for the Muay Thai stuff in June.
Okay.
And what would your best tip be for someone who's going to do their first tournament bout? You know, yeah.
What my advice for you?
I mean, just like, hey, not even advice, right? Hey, here's what it's gonna be. Here's what just be ready for this, or go in with this mindset, or whatever it is.
You know, I always try to convey to people it's fighting, like a lot of things, it's one of those things you just have to do it, because you're never gonna be ready,
Yeah,
ever. You can train for one day, or you can train for 10 years, and you're still never ready. There's people that have been training their whole lives, but I guarantee you they would suck if they got in the ring and fought. It doesn't matter. Like you wouldn't be able to tell that much of a difference between
yeah,
somebody that's only trained a little bit to somebody that's trained a lot if they've never fought. Because fighting is something so different, even though it's similar to sparring, and you get a glimpse of some stuff, but it's a night and day thing. Like there's nothing that can compare
yeah,
or prepare you for it. Um, you just got to do it, and I think understanding that, we have this perception of what it's going to be like, what we're going to do, how it's going to
mm.
feel. And
Yeah,
you're just lying to yourself. You're like, you don't
yeah,
know,
yeah,
and that's, that's why it's so important to like, just keep it simple, keep it
hmm,
basic. Don't overthink it. Don't overplan it. Focus on the basics, man. Be in good shape,
hmm,
stick to your fundamentals,
hmm,
and have fun. It's a fight. You don't even know what you are until you step in there.
yeah,
Now you got a baseline. All right, like
yeah,
this is where I'm at. This is where I'm going to. I got freaking destroyed and annihilated my first fight,
hmm,
but
hmm,
it's like, all right, that's where we're at. So
yeah, yeah.
I don't want that to ever happen again.
Let's go
let's
work
go,
on some of the,
let's
yeah,
go from there.
yeah, yeah,
It's along those lines with the same things as we were saying before. It's like,
hmm,
don't wait to get started. Like just
yeah,
start.
yeah,
All you do
yeah.
is start. So yeah, I'd say the best thing in the world is just get in there and do it and enjoy the process.
Enjoy the process. That's the big thing. I think that's the biggest thing I've learned both in the art and doing this stuff has been, I remember my reps at one point said to me for writing, they were like, dude, be an artist, be a writer, enjoy the process. The outcome doesn't matter. It really doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I learned that lesson not necessarily on the outcome, but the enjoying the process part. I took me like 10 years to finally learn that lesson, because what I realized I was doing was I was trying to just get through. I would like dread the training. I love the training, but it's
Mm,
like, oh my God, I got to do this every freaking morning, waking up at the butt crack of dawn. And you're just like, I just want to fight. I just want to fight. I just want to fight.
mm,
And then when you look back on it, you realize the actual fight is less than 1% of the entire time you do this,
yeah. Yeah.
and you're holding this thing up like this is the fun thing, this is the great thing.
Hmm.
And that's why a lot of us deal with um, depression afterwards, because you have this thing built up and then it's gone in a
Yeah.
flash. And like,
Yeah.
wait, what? And that has nothing to do with whether you won or you lost. It's like it's just gone. It's gone.
Hmm.
That afterglow lasts about 48 hours, maybe.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
then it's like, all right. And then once you learn to enjoy the process, you learn to enjoy the bad days and the hard days. And, it might not necessarily be enjoy them, but appreciate them and understand
Yeah.
that they're part of the process. You have to do this to get to the thing that you want to do. So appreciate it for what it is. It's work, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So
You're
when that kind of clicked, man, I like the problem now is though, like my brain automatically wakes me up at the butt crack of dawn and I can't sleep in when
you
I
can't
want to.
sleep.
So
I
time to
know.
work. It's time to work. Uh,
It's
yeah,
so it's so true. I always joke, like Nate will say to me, "You sleeping in?" I'm like, "What are you talking about? My body's gonna automatically wake
yeah.
up without the alarm at 6 a.m.
I,
Right?
I,
It's
I,
just yeah,
I love it when I'm working and training, but on the days like I just need a day to sleep. Doesn't matter. I'm awake, and then I'm just laying there like, well, I don't want to waste the day, so I might as well
yeah.
do.
Just do this, right? And I'm so glad you're right about the thing about about the sort of enjoying the. I remember the moment where I could finally feel like the days where I would learn something new and I could say, oh yeah, it's gonna suck for a week because it's
Yeah,
gonna take me a week to figure this out. Like
yeah,
what the wave shifts are, whatever it is, it's gonna just take me a week. And
yeah,
that's okay. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Enjoy the process. I think that's the best lesson for everything in life.
Yeah.
Just enjoy the bad days because they're part of the process.
Yeah. Well, Kevin, look, I really appreciate you taking the time. I hope I asked you different questions from what you would
No, that's
normally
great, man.
ask. And
This was definitely very different than anyone I've ever done. So it's awesome.
I appreciate it. I hope to meet you at some point. And next week I got Greg. So it's been 3 weeks
Dope.
of cool Muay Thai dudes. And like, yeah, but thank you so much. I
My
appreciate the time.
pleasure,
Have a
man.
great weekend, brother.
Likewise, man. Have a good one.
Okay, bye.